Drinking matcha tea can be a delicious way to start your day, but drinking it is only half the fun. The process of preparing matcha tea can be also meditative and enjoyable. In this video, we're going to walk you through how to make a bowl of matcha tea from start to finish. Before we get started, it would really mean a lot to us if you could subscribe to our YouTube channel and stay tuned for future tea videos. We have hundreds of videos on all sorts of topics related to Japanese green tea, but for this episode, we're going to stick to the matcha. Let's get started. Okay, so to get started, we're going to take out our matcha, and for this video I'm using the Sakamoto Sai matcha from Mr. Sakamoto. So this is a matcha we discovered relatively recently. We visited Mr. Sakamoto. He's our go-to gyokuro farmer in southern Japan, and if you know about gyokuro and matcha, you'll know that the production process is pretty similar. The tea is grown under similar conditions, so because Mr. Sakamoto is so good at making gyokuro, it's only natural that he would also be good at producing matcha. He just needed to get some mills. So once he was able to purchase 3 different mills for his facility, he was able to start making some really good matcha. And this is one I've been excited about for a long time. You see the color is super green. It's from the Saimidori cultivar, so it's known as being a much sweeter matcha tea. And we're going to get into the taste in a second here, but just wanted to show you the color. So what I just did there is actually very important. You'll notice that this is a much finer powder. There's not as many clumps here, but as soon as you open up a matcha, it's only natural that it's going to start to form clumps when it's exposed to the humidity in the air. And just a simple solution to this is to sift it beforehand. So this is not a sign of a low-quality matcha. It just means that it's been exposed to the humidity. So it doesn't mean that it's gone bad or that it's a bad matcha. It just means that it's only natural. But it will affect the taste if you don't remove these clumps, because they're not going to mix evenly into the matcha tea. So I'm going to go ahead and get about 2 grams. And as you know, I don't measure things out perfectly. I kind of prefer to eyeball it, but if you have a scale, then that's obviously good as well. So you see here, there are some clumps here. So this is not a huge problem because I'm going to sift it, but if you were to just kind of put the clumps right into the matcha, it's not going to mix as evenly, and you're going to get kind of a consistency that's a little bit off. It's not going to mix quite as evenly into the water. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is take the chashaku. So this is our chashaku here with the Neo label, and I'm just going to go ahead and sift this in. So this should only take a few seconds. It's a small step. It really doesn't take much time, and it can really make a difference. So I would recommend you do it. So 2 grams into the sifter. Push the powder through the sifter. You give it a couple extra taps to get that extra powder off. And then go ahead and look. This is how you know you're ready to add the water. So you have this layer of finely sifted powder at the bottom. This is really what you want. And so I mentioned the clumps before. There is one more thing you can do, and I would recommend this whether or not you're sifting the powder. And that's just to add a tiny little bit of water in. Oh, that was actually a little bit too much. But anyways, I'm going to take out my whisk, and I'm going to try to turn this into a paste. That's actually a little too much water for a paste. But you see I have a smaller amount of water here. I can really see the clumps that are forming and kind of smooth them out. So this is just a good extra layer of security of removing the clumps in your matcha. Just kind of add a little bit of water at first so you can still kind of see the clumps and smooth them out. And when you know you're ready to move on to the next step when you see kind of a nice smooth paste there. Again, I used a little bit too much water, but you get the idea. And then I'm going to add the rest of the water. In total, we're going to be using about 100 milliliters for 2 grams. I'm going to start by scraping off the sides of the bowl, scraping off the bottom, and then I'm going to attempt these whisking movements. So what I'm doing with the whisking is I'm keeping my arms straight. I'm really just moving with my wrist here. And I'm whisking in zigzag motions. It should only take about 30 seconds to get this foam, but it will take more time if you're not as well practiced. So a couple tricks here. Just try to keep the whisk off the bottom because they can be really sensitive. I also should have soaked the whisk beforehand because the bamboo is, these bamboo bristles here are really fragile when they're dry. So when you soak them, they become more pliable and less likely to break. But I'm pretty confident I'm not going to break them here, so I just skip that step. But I usually try to do it. And so one thing I will say is you might want to start with a bigger bowl. This is the gray chawan we have on the website. It comes with a lot of the matcha sampler bundles. If you're just starting out, this can work, but you may want to just practice in a larger bowl so you can get larger movements here, which is a little bit easier. And then as you get more experienced, you can do more of those quick little wrist movements. Okay, so what you're looking for here is a pretty dense foam with smaller bubbles. So you see some larger bubbles. I've actually seen people pop these with the whisk. But what you really want is these smaller bubbles that's going to make it taste like a latte. So this is really what you want. And it's harder to do if the matcha is lower quality. These high quality matchas foam up right away because I think it has to do with the theanine. But that's one thing you can do to actually check the quality of a matcha, other than the color is also, the color is not a perfect measurement. Also the foam is even better of a measurement of the quality of a matcha than the color. So I'm going to go ahead and take a sip here. That's really smooth. It's creamy, it's milky. The finish is super smooth. Again, there is that natural sweetness to it. One of the things I was going to do actually is pour this out into a glass. So sometimes you might want to get if you want to drink it in a glass, it's definitely more than okay to drink it out of the bowl. That's actually how they do it in the tea ceremony. But if it's more familiar for you to drink it out of a glass, you might want to make it in something that has a spout because the pouring can be kind of messy. So I'm going to do my best here. I think there is one of these. Okay, I was kind of nervous about that. I had a towel off screen just in case there was a mess. So you see here, I really didn't make that much matcha. 100 milliliters is not a lot of water. It's really a small little sip. It's dense, it's flavorful, and definitely an acquired taste. Something that I wouldn't expect most people to enjoy their first time, but as you get more and more used to the flavor, you really start to look for it. You can see a beautiful foam on top. Obviously, dark green color. This is basically completely opaque, whereas all the other teas are translucent or transparent. So this foam is definitely contributing to the flavor. It's making it smoother, making the finish smoother, lighter, airier texture. So definitely something that you want to incorporate, and the only way to do it is to really follow all the steps and use the bamboo whisk. You can do it with a metal whisk. It's much, much harder. So I would recommend you can actually get our Neo whisk that comes in this little case here. This comes with a lot of the matcha bundles as well, as does the bowl here. So this is almost like a complement to the Gyokuro Cha Meijin, because that's Mr. Sakamoto's Saimidori Gyokuro. Saimidori cultivar is known for this very light sweetness. The Cha Meijin is obviously turned into a Gyokuro, and the Sakamoto Sai matcha is turned into a matcha. So the only difference is that this one is in powdered form, so it goes through the mills, and then you get this fine powder. But this tea is really nice, really smooth. A lot of matchas have this bitterness. Even if they are high quality, they can still have bitterness because most matchas are yapukita. But this one is, super smooth, Saimidori matcha. Got a little hint of this natural sweetness to it. And when you prepare it right, you really get that kind of that milky finish. When I taste a really high quality matcha with somebody, I like to have them close their eyes and pretend that they're drinking like a glass of milk because it's so smooth. It's really a nice experience, but there's a tiny bit of that steamed vegetable kind of flavor with it, which I really like. So this is one of my favorite matchas, actually, the Sakamoto Sai matcha. I tend to like matchas that are, a little bit smoother because I'm not a huge matcha person. I really prefer the gyokuro tea and some of the senchas as well. But this one is very good. Very, very good. So I hope you all found this little demonstration helpful. If you're looking to pick up some of the teaware that we're using, you can find these on our website in various bundles or individually. The matcha we're using is the Sakamoto Sai matcha. This is a matcha from Mr. Sakamoto, one of the farmers we work with that specializes mostly in gyokuro, but he also produces a fantastic matcha as well. So definitely try it. You can try this in the matcha sampler, 21 different types of matcha teas from all over Japan. It includes the Sakamoto Sai matcha as well as the Sakamoto Hime matcha, which is his blended matcha. So a bunch of different cultivars. So thank you all so much for watching. If you made it to the end of the video, please hit that subscribe button. Please hit that like button. It would really mean a lot to us. And you can stay tuned for future tea videos on all sorts of different subjects. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments below. Until then, we'll see you next time.